I am the Migo. Say me a buyer. Sitting a cooler. The boy and clabber. Always say no me chick. See here is dalge. Nago naga de mongoza imonga. Dalgalosa. Dalgalosa. Mira de Migo. Say me a buyer. Sitting a cooler. The boy and clabber. Mira de Migo. Say me a buyer. Sitting a cooler. The boy and clabber. Mira de Migo. Say me a buyer. Sitting a cooler. The boy and clabber. Mira de Migo. Say me a buyer. Sitting a cooler. The boy and clabber. Mira de Migo. Say me a buyer. Sitting a cooler. Mira de Migo. I am the Migo. Say me a buyer. Sitting a cooler. The boy and clabber. Always say no me chick. See here is dalge. Nago naga de mongoza imonga. Dalgalosa. Dalgalosa. Mira de Migo. Say me a buyer. Sitting a cooler. The boy and clabber. Mira de Migo. Say me a buyer. Sitting a cooler. The boy and clabber. Mira de Migo. Say me a buyer. Sitting a cooler. The boy and clabber. Mira de Migo. Say me a buyer. Sitting a cooler. The boy and clabber. Mira de Migo. Say me a buyer.
Awo ische ondon chihunda moedo izdumul gachadi. Chimashiges. Onden yachi stado sichida bunakuna kucho cheese chakaida nenuchit. Ishichida boyalanga. Ondo naba gida sima gitida here in ake jingagat. Fikonit de hunger. So today we're following the trail of history and archaeological research. Okay? That leads us to uncover truths that we've always known and that we've always expressed to the world. But because of racism, we have been denied, okay? But there's no way to deny the truth, okay? Because it never holds sway. We understand that the first civilizations of ancient Mexico were indeed Black, the Olmec, okay? From which every other society or civilization after them came. We understand that the Olmec spoke a Manding language. For those of you who don't know what Manding is, this is a language that comes from West Africa. And the important thing about this is that this language group is also related directly to Hebrew bloodlines. So all of you people who went and did your DNA test and it came back Nigerian or Ghanaian or Malian or West African, and you thought you weren't Native American, actually, we find proof to the contrary. Those are the precise genetics that you would need to have been a person that was from the American Indian population. And these are the facts that have been uncovered by researchers and archaeologists. So once again, the wool's been put over your eyes. You were shown to be African through your DNA testing, and you thought because of that, you were not Native American. But what we come to find out is actually the roots of the Native Americans is African. Now, I want you to see something. The constant migrations to Africa and then to America characterize the diversity of Native American populations. Okay? So this is the reality because remember, Africa was a place that we migrated to. And then from there, the whole rest of the world. After first originating in the Middle East, or what is also known as Asia, and could also too be considered as Africa. Okay? Because we know at one point it was all considered one place. So that's something that we will dig into at a later point. But I will say this: those who disclaim having any African heritage, well, you're probably not a Native American, okay? And you certainly wouldn't be a Hebrew or a Jew, okay? So let's get those things straight. And this has also been confirmed by archaeological research, and many people have posited this to the world community, like I've been doing for the past almost 10 years. Okay. We didn't have to go into archaeological research to know who we were, because we were raised knowing that we were Native American and knowing what tribe we came from and knowing where in Africa we came from. Everybody is not privy to that knowledge. Okay. Some people's families did not, because of circumstance, weren't able to keep those type of records. But those of us who were have been sitting back knowing this without doing any archaeological research. Okay. And so basically now science is catching up to what the Native Americans, the true Native Americans, have already been telling the world. And what we find is that our Muskogee ancestors gave us clues to the reality of where we come from and where to find our historical reality. We go back to the Bible. Chocatlako is what we call it in Creek language. And in the Bible, we see references to the same mound building society existing amongst the Hebrews. Okay? And we realize now that anyone who claims not to be African or not to have African heritage, you cannot be Native American. Because indeed, we understand that the ancient civilizations of Mexico that migrated into North America and settled in the Southeast were indeed and undoubtedly African, and they were Black. Just like the archaeological research has uncovered. And there's been new archaeological findings that are not being shared with the world at this time, because we know that there's a concerted effort to push down and to hide and persecute anything that is Black. But once again, we make the connection linguistically, and we make the connection religiously, as we see all of the practices that we find in the Bible and that we find mentioned in the Quran and other historic religious sources. We find that this is what the archaeologists found and have uncovered. So we won't go into those particular things, some of those things right now, because what we want to focus on is an article that we find in the Literary Digest. Okay. And so what we find there is that the Reverend J. Wesley Anah says in Zion's Herald, Boston, that as late as 1889, a well-informed representative of the Muskogee tribe, when questioned concerning the legends of his people, replied, "They are all in the Old Testament. Read them there, without the trouble of taking them down from our people." And so I thought it was very important for us to do just that. And so we go into Ezekiel, the 16th chapter and the 24th verse. And so what we find out is that was the absolute truth. As we go to Ezekiel chapter 16, even in the English, we find the word mound written. So of course, we go back to our ancient Hebrew language, and it says, "Watibnilek geb wata'asilak rama bikhal rehob." So he says, in addition to your other wickedness, you built a mound for yourself and made a lofty shrine in every public square. Now, this may be still unconvincing to some, but we have to understand how the mounds were used by our ancient ancestors in Israel and then also in America, okay? In every place that we went. This was a religious system, the same system that got us ejected from the Holy Land. We understand that the ancient mounds were used as burial and religious sites, and occasionally they'd be used for defensive purposes, but mainly they were for rituals and ceremonies. And when we go into the Hebrew word that's used here for mound, the word is geb, gimel bait, Okay? And Gimel Beit, Geb, literally means a mound or a shrine used for illicit worship. Okay? And it comes from a primitive root that literally means to hollow or curve the back. Okay? And so we see this is the exact layout in ancient Native America and also in the Bible. And there's more references, but we're going to deal with this one. So we see there's another word mentioned there. He says, "Wata'asilak Rama bichal rehob." So the word Rama literally means a height or a high place, a shrine for illicit worship, a height as the seat of idolatry. Okay? We had a large pantheon. Okay? From the Olmec all the way down to the Mvskoke. Okay? We see the word rehob, literally in the broad and open places, in the plazas or open squares, in the town squares or the streets. And this is exactly how our ancient villages were set up. Okay? So we do see our historical characteristics being displayed and described in the Bible in the very self-same manner that they have been discovered in the Americas. And our people always knew this, as this article reveals. And so if we dig a little bit deeper, what we will also find is that there are Mayan words in the Creek dialects, okay, and Manding derivatives and West African derivatives, Arabic and Hebrew, has been found in the Mvskoke language. We've documented this here on this channel. So we'll be back with more on this. Isochi imadis de hongad. Ishichida is doing buhose chagadis. Ondambu go jogadis. Ado hitis na koyanes.
I am the Migo. Se me abaya. Se china pula. The boy and clabad. Always no michi. Se iya el dalge. Nago naga de mongoza e monga. Dalgalosa. Dalgalosa. Mira de Migo. Se me abaya. Se china pula. The boy and clabad. Mira de Migo. Se me abaya, se chana pula, the boy and clabad. Mira de Migo. Se me abaya, se chana pula, the boy and clabad. Mira de Migo. Se me abaya, se chana pula, the boy and clabad. Mira de Migo. Se me abaya, se chana pula. Mira de Migo. I am the Migo. Se me abaya, se china pula. The boy and clabad. Always no michi. Se iya el dalge. Nago naga de mongoza e monga. Dalgalosa. Dalgalosa. Mira de Migo. Se me abaya, se china pula. The boy and clabad. Mira de Migo. Se me abaya, se china pula. The boy and clabad. Mira de Migo. Se me abaya, se china pula. The boy and clabad. Mira de Migo. Se me abaya, se china pula. The boy and clabad. Mira de Migo. Se me abaya, se china pula.